The transmission began as a faint ripple across the galactic network, almost ignored at first. It was filled with static, broken phrases and the trembling voice of someone who clearly feared for their life. Many who heard it dismissed it as just another plea from a distant colony struggling with pirates. But then the words became clear and the entire galaxy froze. You caged human children? Listen to us. Do you know what you've done? This is not survival, this is not glory, this is doom. Release them before it is too late. The voice came from a colony on the outer rim, a small alien settlement known for trading rare minerals. Its people had no armies, no powerful fleets. They had survived by staying neutral, staying quiet and keeping out of the path of the larger powers. Yet now their message was filled with fear so sharp it carried like fire. At first, many alien species did not understand the weight of those words. Children? Why would humanity care so much about their young? After all, in many species, the weak were left behind. In others, younglings were simply statistics, a number to be replaced if lost. But then a chilling realization began to spread among the wiser civilizations. Humans were not like other species. They came from what scholars called a Deathworld, a planet so harsh that life itself had to fight every single day just to survive. Their storms were violent, their beasts were relentless, and their diseases tested even the strongest bodies. Yet humanity had endured, not only endured but grown, expanded, and reached the stars. What most species saw as unbearable, humans called home. And if their world had shaped them to be strong, it had also shaped their instincts. Above all else, humans protected their own. Now the thought spread like lightning through the galaxy. Someone had dared to cage their children. News anchors repeated the message. Scholars debated it with hushed tones. Merchants whispered it to their crews. Fear trickled into every port, every station. A simple outcry had become a storm of dread. On the colony that had sent the message, panic grew. They had not been the ones to capture the children. No, that mistake had been committed by another species, a faction that believed humans were only a rising race, exaggerated by myth and rumor. That faction had seen human children as curiosities, perhaps even as tools for bargaining. They had locked them away as though they were pets, but the small colony knew better. They had seen humans fight. They had seen human ships pull damaged vessels out of burning orbits, only to turn and face impossible odds against enemy fleets. They had seen human explorers walk through storms that shredded metal, and more than once they had seen the look in human eyes when one of their own was threatened. It was not anger. It was not rage. It was something far colder, something that promised an end. So the colony sent the only warning they could. You caged human children. Now the Deathworlders will come. Across the galaxy, leaders gathered in secret councils. Some laughed nervously, claiming humans would not risk open war over a handful of young. Others did not laugh. They remembered history. They remembered how humans had once crossed the stars in fragile ships and yet refused to yield. They remembered battles where entire human fleets had chosen to fight to the last, simply to protect a single settlement. Silence settled after the transmission. The faction that had taken the children mocked the warning. They sent out their own messages boasting of their strength. They claimed humanity would not dare strike at them. They were wrong. In distant human space, something was already changing. Civilian trade convoys rerouted without explanation. Patrol ships vanished from their usual routes. Military networks, long dormant in peace, began to hum with encrypted codes. The galaxy did not yet see it. But humanity had heard the outcry. They were not shouting, not threatening, not sending ambassadors. They were listening, and in that silence, every species who understood what it meant began to tremble. The colony that sent the warning knew the truth. They had seen the storm begin to move. The words were no longer just a plea. They were a prophecy, carved into the stars for all to hear. You caged human children. Now the Deathworlders' fleet responds. The galaxy waited for humanity to roar. They waited for speeches, for threats, for declarations of vengeance. Yet none came. The governments of Earth and her colonies made no official statement. The great halls of the United Human Fleet remained quiet. No council sessions were broadcast, no fiery words filled the stars. Instead, there was silence. At first, this confused the other civilizations. Silence, they thought, meant hesitation. Perhaps humanity was afraid to face the powerful faction that had caged their children. Perhaps their fearsome reputation was exaggerated. But those who had studied humans carefully felt their hearts grow cold. For silence to humans was not weakness. Silence was focus. Across the Sol system, subtle changes began. Civilian traffic lanes were rerouted away from certain regions. Merchant fleets were quietly recalled to safe harbors. Passenger ships found their flights suddenly delayed or redirected, though no reasons were given. The casual observer might have seen only inconvenience. But to trained eyes, these were signs of preparation. The human fleets, long spread across their growing colonies, began to shift. Patrol ships vanished from border posts. Destroyers slipped from routine orbits. Carriers, massive and silent, moved from hidden anchorages into deep space. The movements were not loud, not boastful. No banners were raised. But the pattern was unmistakable. Humanity was gathering its strength. In one naval dockyard, engineers worked without rest. Sleek warships, their hulls black and sharp, were armed and fueled. Drones flew across their surfaces, checking every system twice. Crews marched aboard, carrying not laughter but quiet determination. Not a single cheer was heard, for none was needed. Each man and woman understood the mission, though no words were spoken. Messages between colonies grew fewer, as if the entire human network had folded in on itself. But in the encrypted dark, vast amounts of data flowed. Orders, coordinates, battle plans. The galaxy began to whisper. On distant space stations, alien merchants noticed something unusual. Humans who were often talkative travelers now moved with silence. They bought only what was necessary: fuel, medical supplies, raw materials, and then departed. Their faces showed no anger, no fury, only cold focus. The faction that had caged the children laughed when they saw this. To them, humanity's quiet movements looked like fear. "They do not dare to speak," their leaders said. "They are waiting for help that will never come." Their silence shows weakness, but others shook their heads. "You do not understand, Deathworlders," the cautious ones warned. When humans go silent, it means they are preparing to act. They do not waste breath on empty threats. They only speak when they are done. Rumors spread of human scouts already moving through the dark. Some claimed to have seen ghostly ships near the borders of the captor's space. Outposts reported strange readings, blips that appeared and vanished as if cloaked eyes were watching them. One by one, the captor's outer stations lost contact. At first, they believed it was technical failure. But when a supply convoy vanished without trace, unease began to stir. Their admirals ordered stronger patrols, yet even these patrols returned with shaken crews, swearing that invisible hunters stalked them in the void. Back on Earth, the leaders still made no speech. No demands, no threats. The media asked questions but received no answers. The galaxy grew impatient, desperate to know what the humans planned. But humans needed no audience. In one hidden command center, a single message was prepared. It was brief, carrying no ornament, no flourish. Only a handful of words waiting for the moment they would be sent. "Return the children. Now." Until that moment, silence reigned. The silence itself became a weapon. It spread dread among the captors because every quiet hour meant humanity was still moving, still preparing. Each day that passed without words was another day the galaxy asked itself the same fearful question. Where is the fleet now? In truth, the fleet was already moving. Not one fleet, but many. Ships from Mars, from Titan, from Europa. Ships from colonies across Alpha Centauri, Proxima, and beyond. They did not fly under separate banners, but under one: humanity united. The galaxy had seen human fleets before, but always divided, each nation acting on its own. This was different. This was a single silent storm. The captors began to realize their mistake, but it was too late. The silence had become louder than any declaration of war. The children were still in cages. But the Deathworlders were coming, and when they arrived, they would not speak. They would act. The faction that had taken the human children once stood proud. They called themselves the Correal Dominion, a coalition of worlds bound together by trade, war, and ambition. To them, humans were still newcomer. Sneer, are only good at telling scary tales. When the first warning spread, the Correal leaders laughed. They saw no reason to fear. After all, they had fleets, fortresses, and colonies spread across dozens of systems. Why should they worry about a single species, even one from a dangerous world? They believed their power unshakable, but then their outposts began to go silent. It started small, an observation station at the edge of a nebula. One day it sent a routine report and the next nothing. The Kurill assumed a technical problem. Engineers were dispatched to investigate, but the engineers never returned. Next, a mining colony failed to answer its calls. Patrol ships were sent, but when they reached the system they found nothing. No distress beacon, no survivors, not even wreckage. It was as though the colony had been lifted from the planet's surface and erased. At first, the Kurill still tried to laugh. Accidents, they claimed. Pirates, they suggested. But the laughter grew thinner with each report. Scouts whispered of strange shadows in space, shapes that appeared on sensors for only a moment before vanishing. Supply ships described being followed by silent hunters that never revealed themselves. Fear began to spread among the Kurill crews. Soldiers who once boasted of their strength now kept their voices low, glancing nervously into the darkness of space. Rumors raced faster than any official order. The Deathworlders are already here, they whispered. They are watching us. The Kurill admirals tried to restore order. They gathered fleets at strongholds, convinced that sheer numbers would protect them. Massive battleships lined up in orbit around their key worlds, weapons charged, shields raised. Yet even in those mighty armadas, unease grew, because no enemy fleet arrived to meet them. No enemy hailed them. No battle was fought. Instead, their fleets began to starve. Cargo convoys never arrived. Refueling stations went dark. Communication relays were cut. Every week, another vital link was severed, and still no enemy ships showed themselves. The Kurill finally understood. Humanity was not rushing into open war. Humanity was dismantling them piece by piece without ever being seen. Meanwhile, the children remained caged. Guards watched over them nervously, knowing the weight of their orders. Some tried to speak kindly to the young captives, though the children answered with silent, unblinking stares. Even in their fear, the children carried the strength of their species, and that frightened the guards even more. The Kurill leadership debated endlessly. Some argued to return the children quietly to avoid disaster. Others insisted that surrendering would make them look weak. In the grand chamber of the Dominion, voices rose in anger and fear. One admiral slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "They are only humans. Their silence is a bluff." But no one truly believed him, because by now the silence had grown unbearable. Then came the first real strike. A fortress world, home to one of the Dominion's strongest fleets, awoke to alarms. In the night sky, dark shapes slipped past their outer defenses. They moved without lights, without signals, shadows with engines. Before the Dominion could respond, precision strikes cut through their shield generators, silencing them in seconds. Barracks, hangars, command towers, each was struck with perfect accuracy. The defenders tried to rally, but when their weapons fired, they found nothing to hit. The attackers were already gone. In their wake, they left only disabled systems and a single transmission burned into the fortress comms. "Return the children." Panic spread faster than light. Entire fleets deserted, commanders begging to retreat. Citizens whispered in fear, some even evacuating their homes. The mighty Dominion, once so proud, now trembled in the shadow of Deathworlders. For the first time, the Kurill began to understand. Humanity was not a predator that attacked with fury. Humanity was something far worse. A predator that hunted with patience, a predator that struck only when it chose, and they had chosen their prey. The children were still in cages, but the Deathworlders were closing in. For weeks, the galaxy had waited, watching in silence as the humans moved like shadows. But now the silence ended. The human fleet arrived. It was not a scattered force, not the divided armadas that other civilizations had seen in the past. This was something new, something greater. Every human nation, every colony, every outpost had sent ships. Warships of every size appeared from hyperspace, sliding into the same formation as if they were one body. Their hulls were dark, their angles sharp, and their movements precise. There were no songs of battle. No grand speeches. No banners waving in the void. The humans arrived without celebration, and that made the sight far more terrifying. The Dominion's fleets were already waiting, hundreds of ships bristling with weapons. Admirals shouted orders promising to crush the Deathworlders before they reached the cages. But when they saw the humans, their voices grew smaller. For every ship the Dominion had, the humans had 3. For every carrier they launched, the humans had one larger, heavier, and armed with newer weapons. And behind the front lines, more ships kept arriving. Silent, steady, endless. The galaxy watched through hidden broadcasts. Traitors, spies, and neutral observers sent out reports that spread across the stars. Everyone could see the same truth. The humans had not come to talk. They had come to end this. The Dominion made the first move. Their fleets opened fire, lances of light filling the dark. Explosions rippled through space as they tried to overwhelm the human formations. Yet the human ships moved as though they had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Shields overlapped, counterfire was focused, and enemy missiles were destroyed before they reached their targets. Then the humans struck back. It was not chaotic, not wild. Their attacks were precise like a surgeon's blade. They did not waste shots on warships that fled. They did not target cities or civilians. Instead, they cut directly at military strongholds, command ships, and weapon platforms. In the first hour of battle, the Dominion lost more ships than in any war of their history. On the surface of the prison world where the children were kept, alarms screamed. The guards looked to the skies and fear tightened their throats. They had believed the due in the galaxy. They respected humanity's survival stories but dismissed them as exaggerations. Deathworlders, they said, with a minion's defenses would keep humanity away. Now fire fell from the heavens as human strike teams descended. Dropships pierced the atmosphere sleek and fast, burning trails across the clouds. The boarding teams that landed were unlike anything the guards had ever faced. Humans in black armor moved with speed and discipline, every step measured, every shot placed with precision. They did not storm in blindly. They advanced with care, cutting through walls, disabling defenses, and clearing halls. When they reached the cages, their movements changed. The cold precision was gone, replaced with gentle urgency. Soldiers knelt, their armored hands careful as they unlocked the doors. Their voices, calm and steady, soothed the frightened children. "You're safe now," one soldier whispered. "We're here." The children, though exhausted, felt the truth in those words. They clung to their rescuers, not out of fear, but out of trust. Outside, the battle raged on. The Dominion fought with desperation, but humanity's fleet pressed forward. Admirals gave no long speeches. Their orders were simple: protect the children, disable the enemy, end the war. When the Dominion tried to bargain, sending out frantic transmissions, the humans answered only with silence. They did not negotiate. They did not argue. The only message broadcast from the human fleet was short and final: return the children, now. The Dominion's leaders hesitated too long. Their hesitation cost them their fleets, their stations, and their pride. Entire squadrons surrendered rather than face the relentless precision of the humans. Worlds that once pledged loyalty to the Dominion now begged to break away, fearing humanity's wrath. But humanity's wrath was not wild destruction. It was focused. It was controlled. They had not come to conquer. They had come for their young. And nothing, no fleet, no fortress, no government, would stop them. By the end of the day, the cages were empty. The children were safe aboard human ships, wrapped in blankets, surrounded by voices that promised protection. Soldiers stood guard at their doors, not as warriors now, but as guardians. The Dominion had believed humans were just another species to test. But now, they saw the truth. Humans did not fight like conquerors. They fought like protectors. And for their children, they would become unstoppable. The galaxy, watching from afar, understood this lesson well. When the last battle ended, the galaxy grew silent once more. But this silence was not the tense waiting of before. It was the heavy silence that follows a storm. The Coral Dominion, once proud, now lay broken. Its fleets shattered, its fortresses disabled, its leaders disgraced. For years they had called themselves powerful, but in a single campaign, humanity had shown the truth. Power was not numbers. Power was not arrogance. Power was the will to protect what mattered most. The children were safe. They sat aboard the human flagship, surrounded by gentle voices and watchful guardians. Doctors checked their health, while soldiers stood like statues outside their rooms. To the soldiers, this was not duty. It was promise. No harm would ever reach these children again. The galaxy watched in awe as the broadcast spread. Secret recordings from neutral observers revealed the sight of humanity's fleets moving in unison. They revealed how humans struck only at military targets, never harming the innocent. And they revealed the moment when armored Marines carried frightened children from cages into waiting arms. Those images burned themselves into history. For the small colony that had first sent the SOS, the story ended with relief. Humanity did not punish them. In fact, a human envoy personally thanked them for raising the alarm. Supplies were sent to strengthen their world, and their name became honored among human allies. They spoke for our children, the humans said. They are our friends. But for the Corial Dominion, there was no honor left. Their fleets lay scattered wrecks. Their governors fled to distant systems, hunted by their own people who now blamed them for inviting disaster. Even those who had supported the Dominion turned away, declaring that they wanted no part in a war with the Deathworlders. Still, the most powerful lesson was not about fleets or battles. It was about devotion. Alien scholars debated the events in quiet tones. They spoke of how humans had fought with cold precision, yet had shown such tenderness to their young. They marveled at how a species shaped by storms and danger had built its greatest strength not on fear, but on loyalty. They are dangerous, one scholar whispered, because they do not fight for conquest. They fight for one another. Merchants carried the tale from world to world. On space stations, travelers repeated it in hushed voices. Do not touch a human child, they said. If you do, you invite their entire species to your door. The lesson spread faster than any fleet. It became law in many places, formal or not. Some species even wrote it into their codes. No human young shall be harmed. The children, once trapped in cages, now lived safely among their families again. They did not fully understand the storm that had shaken the stars, but they knew one thing. When they called, their people came. Humanity had crossed light years for them, and in doing so, reminded the galaxy of who they were. On the human flagship, as the fleet prepared to return home, the final order was simple. There would be no parades, no celebration, no long speeches. Humanity had done what it came to do. The admiral stood before her officers and said only, "Bring them home." And so the great armada began its journey back, the rescued children safe among them. Behind the wreckage of the Dominion drifted in silence, a warning carved into the stars themselves. The galaxy did not forget. Even generations later, stories of the event remained. Children of many species grew up hearing the tale of the Deathworlders who crossed the stars to save their own. And always, the lesson stayed the same. Humans may be silent. They may not always speak first. But when their children are threatened, they do not negotiate. They respond. And when they respond, no power in the galaxy can stand against them.